Howdy folks, this was meant to be out on the 5th and then I forgot that like recording programs can smell fear like printers, so unfortunately I've spent the last 3 hours trying to get this to record and actually have like sound and video and be in sync, and hopefully this should work. So hello, welcome to the channel and welcome to the first Q&A video. We'll be doing one of these about every 4 weeks. If you want to ask more questions, you can join my community, links and all that lot down in the doobly-doo, or just ask a question in the comments. So I asked my community and I got sent about 60 questions, so this is just like a cross-section of the questions I got asked, and I will get around to answering all of them eventually, at least the sensible ones. So, first question, what was your first TCG/CCG? It was Magic the Gathering. I learnt how to play Magic the summer that Ice Age was released. So I was involved with a LARP community, and when I was there, one of the other people there, Danny, had Magic cards and I thought they were kind of cool and I wanted to learn, but he wouldn't teach me. So then a guy who became a fairly long time friend, Rich, sat me down and taught me how to play, and yeah, and I've played that ever since pretty much. Not really too happy with how the game is in the current state. I don't really like Commander, and with that being pushed as the primary physical format, I used to play Legacy, regret selling my Legacy collection, but I don't actually, because if I hadn't I'd have been homeless. Otherwise I mostly play Pauper. I have no doubt at some point on the channel I will be doing a Pauper video where I talk about and show off gameplay from my favourite decks in the format. There's a really dirty blue-green one out there at the moment that I've been playing, which seems to be the main method of winning, is getting your opponent to quit in disgust. So yeah. Speaking of LARPing, I was asked which nerdy thing has the best/worst prep time to actually doing it ratio. Worst prep time to enjoyment? LARPing. 1000% LARPing. I'm old now. My joints ache. I don't like camping. You tend to deal with more kit wankers in LARPing than in a lot of other things, and so like I want to be comfortable, I want to be warm. I don't care if, you know, hose is the correct thing to wear and not long johns. I want my giblets to be warm. And it's been interesting seeing that a lot of the people that I knew within the LARP community who were like, right, for this scene I'm going to set my head on fire and run at them, to be now like, no talking above, no shouting, because you could traumatize another player. It's just very odd. Best prep time to actually doing it ratio? I suppose if you've already got pre-constructed decks like Magic TCGs where you can just turn up, shuffle, play. But in terms of prep time, actually, Blood Bowl. Fantasy American football, not as in fancy as in pick your, sorry, that was my elbow. Pick your team from real players like Orcs and Goblins and stuff like that. It's made by Games Workshop. Fantastic box game, quite cheap to get into. The teams are small, so they're fun to put together. You only have a maximum of 16 players, so they're quick to paint. And both of those are enjoyable because you get to do team colours and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And then the games themselves are fantastic fun once you learn how to play them. So that's probably got the best prep time to actually doing it, because the prep is actually enjoyable as well. Next question. Is there a book you couldn't get through in the first time you tried to read it, but when you read it again you enjoyed it, and what changed? What do you think changed between readings? Isaac Asimov's The Foundation. Well, Isaac Asimov's Foundation, not The Foundation, Foundation. And for those of you who know me, ironically, Dune by Frank Herbert. Yeah, basically, I think I was just a bit too young for them. Both of them were lent to me by relatives who were big sci-fi nerds and like in their late 40s, late 30s, early 40s, you know, in that kind of thing. And I just don't think I quite had the concentration and capacity for it at the time. I was eating, you know, Terry Pratchett books and D&D books and stuff like that for breakfast, but yeah, like particularly Foundation is very slow going, and then all of a sudden it becomes real. But getting through that first block was just, oh, But yeah, but otherwise they're fantastic. Right, next question. What miniature would you recommend to someone wanting to paint their first miniature ever? I know, one sec. Sorry, I just got to rummage around for him. Something like... so this is from a Games Workshop game called Warhammer Underworlds, and they make war bands. They make like set war bands. So you have a number of dudes, you have a little box of dudes, and they're usually quite dynamically posed. They're mono posed, so you don't have to worry about, like, you know, does this look right? And they're detailed, but they're not completely ridiculous, so you can really try and drill in on it. Otherwise, pick something cool. I particularly like this big orc war boss. Something like that, something nice, big and chunky that you can hold. Or finally, there is a company called Oathsworn Miniatures. I'll put a link to them down below. I'm not sponsored by them, I just really like them. And they make a game called Burrows and Badgers, which is about aminals. Like, here's a little mouse burglar. Look at him, a little mouse with a little knife. And it's like a fairly narrative game of animals, particularly British animals, engaging in combat with each other. It's a bit grim, but it's nice. Miniatures are lovely. They're not too expensive. They're not overly detailed, and, like, you know, who hasn't wanted to paint a squirrel? Like, there's a wizard squirrel. I will definitely be doing a video about Burrows and Badgers in the future, because it's one of my regular hyperfixations. But then otherwise, anything you can get your hands on for free. Like, if you go to Games Workshop, they offer free painting lessons. So if you actually go to the physical Games Workshop, they'll give you either a Space Marine or a Stormcast and show you some basic painting techniques. Local game shops, like local hobby shops, are usually pretty good, because they'll, like, painting is one of those things that you never buy less paints. You always, like, I've got my paint straw just down here, and, like, you know, Skeleton Horde, I think I bought about 6 pots of this over the time, and, you know, it's one of those where paint is just, you use paint, so you have to keep buying it, so it's a nice trickle income for shops. So quite often they're keen on getting you to paint. If you are in the Coventry, Leamington area of the UK, the Games Den, where I used to work in Leamington, on Wednesday nights they do a painting night, and you can go along and learn how to paint there. But yeah, just find a hobby shop and paint something cool. Your first miniature will be terrible. It will be garbage. My first miniature was a Space Wolf Captain, the one with the wolf head that was like that I painted Go Faster red, because I was told that red miniatures went faster, and I wanted to get my Space Wolf Captain into combat quicker, so I painted in red, about, you know, like poster paint thickness as well. So yeah, that. What advice would you give to anyone who is considering DMing a TTRPG and hasn't done it before? DMing is a performance, and if you've ever done any kind of performance, if you've ever done stand-up comedy, if you've ever sung, if you've ever danced, if you've ever performed in any way to an audience, you have to understand that sometimes you will just straight up fucking bomb, and you will have games that don't go very well. You will have games that go fantastically, but you need to go into it with your eyes open that with the best will in the world, stuff might not go to plan, and to not let that you know, put you off, to dissuade you. The other thing, I actually have a video on the channel that's quite old now, which is what do running your first Dungeons and Dragons game. But essentially the same thing is true. You want to, sorry, I'm looking above me to see if I've got one up here. Huh, I don't. I've just got all Mandarin books. Find yourself a pre-written adventure, and then read through it and make notes on anything that you, not the internet, you need to remember. And then have the adventure open and your notes open, and you'll know that when you get to each spot in the adventure that you have put your notes down for, you won't be worried, because you'll know what the stat line of a goblin is, or how fatigue works, or to calculate hit ratios, or whatever. That is probably the best piece of advice I can give you. Very simple. You just need a notebook and a pen. Robert's your mother's brother. What has drawn you into a TCG or CCG game the most, and what has turned you off one? I like, not funky, I like when companies take an existing mechanic and just change it a bit. I don't like when companies try and reinvent the wheel. It does work sometimes. UFS is an example. They did some fantastic things with like completely new space within the CCG world, but that was a bit of a fluke in my eyes. Sorry, hangnail. Whereas, like, whereas Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood uses a mechanic whereby your cards from your hand are attacks, resources, and defenses. And while some games had done 2 of those, no one had really done it as coherently as they have. And then the way that they've got it so that it's like it's one-on-one, you can have multiple versions of a card, but they each have different effects. Things that kind of wiggle that bit of brain space. That's the big thing that draws me in. Things that are a little bit different but are still coming from an understandable direction. The thing that really turns me off, dice. Hate dice. If you have to roll dice, not interested. I say this having played Warlord, but that's a very different type of game. I never played that seriously. When the game gets too up its own arse, if that makes a word of sense. So like the Versus system, when that came out, it came out and it had like an interesting set of mechanics, and then the last time I played it, it had metamorphosed into this like, okay, so there's the normal board and there's the shadow board, and you can have characters on one or the other, but some can go between the two, but then you can play cards from your hand which can only affect one but not the other, and it was just like, mate, I've got a job. I don't need a second one. That or artificial rarity problems. So I played Dragon Ball Super. Loved the game. The Dragon Ball Super card game. It's fantastic. The mechanics work really well. The power creep's a bit, but the mechanics work really well. However, it was a nightmare. So there was a promo Vegeta. I think it was called Lightning Speed Vegeta, who cost 4, had 8,000 power, which was fairly good for 4, and had double attack, so you could attack with him twice. Fair enough. The rare Vegeta that you could get normally without having to faff around to get the promo for 4 had 7,000 power and did an extra damage if he hit. And it's one of those where it's like, I don't like it when cards that are necessary or interesting within the play sphere are also difficult to get hold of. And I don't mean like Magic, where it's like, okay, I want a volcanic island and it's going to cost me a lot of money because they're old. Not like that. I mean like, I want, if Magic had made volcanic islands only available if you attended, I don't know, Gen Con in 1997, and you had to get one from a pack which had 8 possible cards in it, and one of them was a volcanic island. Nah, miss me with that. Yeah. Next question. Favourite dice/diceless resolution mechanic? Favourite dice resolution mechanic is the old AEG roll and keep system, which was you roll a number of dice equal to your skill, which were d10s, and you keep a number of dice equal to your stat. So say you had, I don't know, melee combat 5 and reflexes, because you're doing a quick attack. Agility, sorry, you're doing a quick attack of 3. You would roll 5d10, keep 3 of them. And however high you rolled was what you did. 10s and it exploded, so if you rolled a 10, you would then pick it up and roll it again. And so you could have entertaining moments where, like, one of my friends had a character that could roll 8 dice for something, but only keep 1. So what he would do is he would just play the numbers game of like, oh, that one rolled a 10, roll again, and hope to roll a very high number, chopping down those percentages. Really, really like that system. I've used it quite a lot in rando homebrews and stuff that I've done. I did a Naruto system based off of it, which I really liked, because you did molding chakra, so depending on how many dice you assigned, it did different things and stuff like that. That one has probably been my favourite dice resolution mechanic. I mean, I like D20. D20 is great because it is just literally, you can explain it to a monkey. Here's a D20, say what you want to do, roll the D20 and add your modifiers. High number's good, low number's bad. Done. What is my favourite diceless resolution mechanic? So I do quite like Jenga tower ones where it's like, you've got to take the Jenga tower piece out, and that one I quite like that. I've got a soft spot for that. There was an RPG I played with someone at an anime convention. How long ago has this got? This got to be at least 15 years ago. Yeah, sounds about right. And it used a deck of tarot cards. It wasn't Everway or Amber, by the way. And basically you shuffled the deck, and then when you went to do something, you flipped over the top card of the deck, and then you and the group would decide how that affected the outcome of the roll, or like the action, which was interesting because you could like tie in the meanings of the cards as well as if there was numbers on them or what the art was on the card or stuff like that. That was quite cool. I don't think it was really any system other than the one the person was running, and it worked quite well because everyone in the group kind of got it, which was nice, But then again, anything that the group gets is nice. Next one. Have you had any major letdowns among RPGs? Something you had high hopes for, only to find it severely lacking? Most licensed sci-fi RPGs. The Expanse, Firefly, Aliens, basically anything like that. For some reason, I do not know why, and I wish I could figure it out, either the systems are comedically breakable, and I don't mean like, oh well, I've got these 9 books and I read them all and there's a typo in this book that lets you take this ability from this book. No, I mean like simple stuff like, so let me get this straight, for 1 point I can add a d4 to my roll, and then to add a d6 is 3 points. Why don't I just add 3d4? What? Well, a 6 will give me a range from 1 to 6, and a d4, or 3 d4s will give me a range from 3 to 12. Yeah, but you could roll a 3. Yeah, but if I spend 3 points on d6, I can roll a 2 or a 1. And they just seem to be, I don't know, like Star Wars weirdly is an exception. Star Wars seems to do it alright. But then again, I suppose Star Wars isn't really sci-fi, is it? It's more fantasy with people going with ships. But yeah, generally those, they really, I was really excited for some of those, like The Expanse and things like that. And then I read them and I was like, this is just either wanky generic or overly complicated and too easy to break. And it just kind of, because I really like my sci-fi. Right. That's the question-y bits. People are now into recommendations. People are asking me, what games am I playing at the moment? I am playing an arena survival roguelike called Brotato. I'm really enjoying. I just finished Vampire Survivor. Well, I say finish. I've done everything I can be bothered to do in Vampire Survivors. I've been playing a game called Dome Keeper, which is fantastic. By the way, not sponsored by any of these and all that lot. I've been playing some Team Fortress 2. I love me some Team Fortress 2. Played that for, wow, a long time actually. Played it since beta. Card game wise, I've been playing Pokemon. I've been playing Magic online again. Playing Pauper primarily. I am trying to play more games this year, so I've got a bunch queued up. Like, I'm going to be playing The Unfinished Swan. Never played that. I've got Dicey Dungeons, Sonic Mania, Ori and the Blind Forest, Transistor, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Chronicles of Mystara. I've got a bunch of games that like I always wanted to play and get through, but kind of never did. So yeah, I've got a bunch of them which I'm going to be playing. Just seeing if there's anything else I can recommend. No, that's it. That's all I'm playing at the moment, really. I'm not really doing much RPGs. Got a D&D game which we're trying to get the group set up for again. Got a D&D game that I got begged to run that the players have just not bothered, not calling anyone out. Yeah. Right, 3 must-read recommendations for fantasy, sci-fi and non-fiction. Woof. I'm going to do individual books rather than series. So, fantasy, Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. If not only for the line, what is it that the crop has to look forward to but the care of the Reaper Man? I mean, yeah. Empire of Black and Gold, from Empire in Black and Gold by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Fantastic world, interesting premise, and the first book really does make you want to read the original quadrilogy. Fantasy. What have I read recently in fantasy that I thought was really good? Oh, Drachenfels by, well, it was Jack Yeovil, but it turns out that it was actually Kim, I've forgotten her name. It was a Warhammer novel, old Warhammer novel called Drachenfels. Fantastic novel. Really got me into that kind of like semi-investigation sort of gothic horror type thing. Just give it a read. Games Workshop reprinted it. It's fantastic. Drachenfels. Sci-fi. I would say Dune, as in the original Dune, but that book, like, you can beat a child to death with it, and it may be a bit much for some. So probably Off Basilisk Station, the first of the Honor Harrington books. A bit schlocky, kind of hornblower in space sci-fi with a female protagonist, but entertaining read. You're not going to become a super genius from reading them, but you know, it's enjoyable enough. Honor Bound, actually, another female character actually, by Rachel Harrison, Games Workshop book following a female commissar attached to the Antari rifles. Some of the best human scale Warhammer 40,000 writing that I've ever read, and I've read most of the Black Library. Dystopian, screw it, I'm going to say Dystopian counts. 1984, the original 1984 by George Orwell. Make sure, if you're American, you get a copy with the final chapter, with the notes on Newspeak, the glossary chapter, and actually read the damn book. Don't just sit there and go, all right, it's 1984, it's all about surveillance and that. Actually read it and see why, like, what's in it, why the humanity matters, why Ford Prefect is, yeah, just read it. Read the damn book. Non-fiction, The Box, which is also known as Deep Sea and Ocean Going. It goes into the invention, standardization and utilization of containerization in shipping. Fascinating book. The Examined Life, which is a book written by a psychiatrist about some of the cases that he's had. That's another fascinating one. I'll put links down below. And non-fiction books that I've liked. Salt. There's a book literally about salt and all of its evolution. That's a fascinating book, absolutely fascinating. Managed to get my partner Bonnie to hate me because all I would talk about was salt for like 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah, so those would be my recommendations. I know who sent this question in. If I was to make a crypto project, what would you call it and what would it be for? It would be called the ABCs of Crypto. It would be a children's cardboard, thick cardboard ABCs book for kids to learn about crypto, and then each individual page of it would be sold off as NFTs. There you go. Anime suggestions. Yes. So I've been on a bit of a binge downloading the old animus. Sorry, I mean buying legally the old animus. I'm currently watching Spy X Family. fantastic. Don't know if I'd go so far as to say better than the manga, but I prefer manga to anime. Let's go some really old school nonsense. Ashita no Joe, which is about a boxer. I will burn myself up till all is left is brilliant white ash, and that will be my victory. Yeah, I watched that from the 1970s. It's ugly as hell, but you'll love it. And the sequel, Ashita no Joe 2. Super Dimensional Century August and its sequel August 2. If you want interesting look at mecha and how it might interface with like a fantasy world, that one's quite good. So I'm literally just going through my folder looking at the moment. I'm currently in the 80s right now, 1987. Bubblegum Crisis, just because I really like the idea of like hot ladies in armoured suits, you know, it's always fantastic. Dominion Tank Police, just a funny one by Mazumane Shiro before he got too horny. I quite like it. It's the police, but they're in tanks, hence the name Tank Police. If you want to watch a lot of something, Ranma 1/2. It's about a guy who's a he's a martial artist, who he ends up falling into the cursed spring of the drowned red-headed girl. So now whenever he gets wet with cold water, he turns into a red-headed girl and doesn't turn back until he is covered in hot water. Very dumb, very schlocky, very silly. Yeah, I like it. That's all miserable. I like quite a lot of miserable anime, so I try not to recommend too much miserable anime. Because Rojin Z. It is about an AI-controlled bed to look after an elderly man that, in order to better help him, becomes a copy of his dead wife, and then takes him to see something they saw when they were younger, and it turns into like a giant city-smashing mech. It's dumb, super fun. The new Dominion Tank Police OVA is beautiful. It's not the best story, but it is beautiful. It is one of the best examples of hand-drawn Japanese animation from like the late 80s, early 90s. So seriously, give it a look. It's up there with like Macross Plus. Speaking of which, Macross Plus. The Street Fighter 2 movie, the classic Street Fighter 2 movie. Just because I really like it. I think it's really cool. Still in the 90s. I think I might leave it at the 90s, and I'll do 2000s when I do more recommendations. Anything else? I would say Chainsaw Man, but like everyone on the internet has said to watch Chainsaw Man. It's very gory. It's very good. It's interesting, which I suppose is the big thing. It's very interesting. As it goes on. It starts off a bit dumb, but it becomes interesting as it goes on. Actually, would people be interested in me talking about anime? Because it's one of the hyperfixations I've had in the past, and there's a few series that I absolutely adore. But yeah, those will be my anime suggestions for now. I'm sure I'll think of more. And yeah, this has been... Wow, that's quite a long video. I'm just looking at the time. I hope this is letting you learn a bit more about me. Like I say, all the links will be down in the doobly-doo. Please join the community. Please be part of the thing. I will be streaming, I suppose today technically, but tomorrow on the Friday. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Might make games. Might play a game. This is in my goal for the year: is 1 video a week, 1 stream a week, 1 blog post a week, and a TikTok video every... I'll put my TikTok down below as well, because my TikTok videos are just randomness. But yeah, otherwise, have fun, be awesome, and peace and love. Bye bye.